Welcome back to episode 4 of Uncomfortable Conversations. If you're new, I'm Mohammed. That's Mohammed. We got Mulu. We're all going to introduce ourselves a little more in depth as we go on. But in this episode, we're going to be talking about whether there is tension between African American men and African American women and where it began, why it's occurring, and just overall our opinion on it and how things can play out in the future and how we expect things to go. Um, do you want to introduce the topic more in depth, Mohammed, and
Yeah.
why we chose it?
Um, Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Hope everyone's having a great summer. Um, so Mulu today's joining us. We wanted to invite the reason first why we started this topic is because as a black male, and as Muhammad as a black male, we've always wanted to get really uncomfortable with black conversations. And with with this channel, we have the opportunity to do so. So we invited Mulu so we can really speak on this in a more profound, more educated way instead of like some YouTube, those YouTube podcasts that like have old guys talking about things that they have nothing to really talk about. And so we're really speaking on black male slash black female conflict. Is it individually caused? Is it culturally nurtured? Or does it even exist? And that's the question we have today. I'm Mohammed, founder 2020, and I'll let Mulu introduce herself. Go ahead.
Should I like say something about myself or should I just say
Yeah,
it?
yeah. Say something about yourself.
Okay, well, I'm Mulu. I go to Howard and I'm an African American studies major and sexuality minor.
Amazing. Yeah. And yeah, we're here and we've all known each other from our Black roots, last year protests and everything like that. So yeah, let's get this topic started. Who wants I'll just throw the question out there. What do you guys think when people say, yes, black men hate black women? And what are your thoughts on that? And Mulu, you go straight ahead.
Okay. Okay, hate. I don't know if I agree with like hate. I don't know if it's as strong. I just feel like they're kind of conditioned to obviously like discriminate against women and use misogyny as a default, in the way that they interact with women. So, but like, I feel like hate is the wrong word. I feel like it's better to use like oppress women, because if you use the word hate, then it's like automatically you're going to get into, like black men being like, oh, like it's not hate, like it doesn't exist, like you guys are just ungrateful. And then you'll have like some women, who are on the side of like, yeah, you do. And the other women who like internalize misogyny and they're like, no, like it's all in like women's heads. So I feel like, yeah, using different words is like really important when you're having like these type of conversations, because if you use the wrong ones, then like it could like offend some people and like change the conversation into like something completely like unuseful.
Right. So framing it is like what counts, but like regardless of the framing, isn't that like impact the same? Like, it's true that black, or it's said that like, yeah, black men demean black women um more than they do for other types of races. Like, wouldn't you just rather call it out than just say, kind of like, change up the words so it pleases more
I get
people?
what you mean. Yeah, I get what you mean. But like, I feel like because like the reason like specific words are important because like it will help like guide people in getting the right education, and like it will help them like not automatically dismiss it, you know? Because like if you're just like black men they hate women or black women, then it's like, I mean, they do things that like are showing that they hate black women, but I feel like it's more like insecurity and internalized hate for themselves. You know what I mean? So
Right.
like I feel like it's important to say that, because then like if you don't, no one will kind of want to get an education on it and like go further and like take a step back and really self-reflect, you know? Because
Right.
like even though like I feel like they shouldn't like the blame shouldn't like all just be on the fact that like black men hate black women, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
it should be like on like specifics, like what do they do that shows that, and like where does that stem from? Because like if you like look into what the big root is white supremacy. So
Right. So before we get into like the roots, Mohammed, what are your thoughts on it, on the topic and everything like that?
I agree that it's internalized insecurity. That's what I think the root is. I think it's, I don't know. I think it, like you could see it in people, especially when someone's like, I'm not gonna mess with this girl because she's darker than me, or like, like when rappers like Kodak Black, he's like, I'm not gonna mess with a girl that's uh darker skin shade than me, And at the end of the day, it's like if you if you think about it, it's because he doesn't like his own skin. He's not comfortable in his own skin. So he
Right.
takes that out on other people. So I think it does exist. I also agree with, I don't know whether it's that black men hate black women or whether they hate themselves and they're projecting that onto black women. Um, Also, I don't think that it's every black man, obviously, but I just think it's something that exists in like mainstream culture just because the way that our culture is created, like just the music industry and just what we see on social media just pushes hate.
Right. So I agree with both of you guys. Like I feel like it's definitely not on the spectrum of like, targeted hate, but I think unknowingly or knowingly black males, we discredit black women, from, and especially today, like social media has like a huge influence on that. Like I remember from like Megan Thee Stallion calling her like, oh, she's built like a man, or anything like that. But like white women weren't getting none of that. Like I was always just like black women that were seen as like the aggressive, macho, and you see the jokes, but jokes, have some truth in it. So, I think like growing up, like we were just so like, okay, yeah, like I like light skinned women, because they're more beautiful, and that you say that because like, oh, that's my preference. But when you're saying that, you're not really understanding the fact that like, oh, you're dismissing and you're disrespecting. And I think it's just education. Like growing up, I don't have sisters. Um, but even if I did, I don't think I would be told like, yeah, you got to protect black women, you know. It was just like protect black, you just protect, you got to protect ourselves, as a whole. It was never like black males and then black women, or black women and then black males. That just never happened. Um, and I think you can agree, Mohammed, like nobody like told us that growing up. And that's part of the problem, like the nurturing, from parents, from the culture. Being a woman is already harder enough, but being a black woman, you're disrespected on a whole nother level. So, I want to ask you guys, like, yeah, I mean, you're talking about dark skin, light skin. Is the colorism a part of the like foundation, or is it a whole separate thing? When you're talking about the the degrading for black women from black men. You get what I'm saying, or
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Okay, I just didn't know if you wanted to go first.
yeah. I mean,
No,
go ahead.
I definitely think it's a part of it because it's just like misogyny as a whole is different from like misogyny specifically towards black women, and like colorism is a huge part of that because obviously colorism is something that affects like only black people or like brown people as well.
Right,
So, and like I noticed that, because like back then I used to be like, okay, like colorism does like affect all like black people, doesn't matter like gender. But then like you kind of start noticing that like dark skinned like trans women and dark skinned black women are like treated differently. Like it has misogyny mixed into it, as
Right.
well as like colorism. Because like even though dark skinned black men like obviously face colorism, it's like in a different way than dark skinned black women. You know, like
Right.
it can be a dark skinned black man and like he'll still be pointing out the fact that like a black woman is dark skinned and it's like her features are ugly. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So it's like I feel like misogyny plays a huge part into colorism because yeah, dark skinned black women just like face it in a different way than dark skinned black men. Even though it's not to say that like dark skinned black men don't get it at all, it's like they take part in it because they want to like oppress black or dark skinned black women.
So racism plus sexism, are like the components to, and that's what makes it different than,
Yeah.
with a black male. And you go to Howard. I didn't go to Howard. I went to like a really white school.
Mhm.
Muhammad, you went to Boulder, so let's not even speak on that. So like, I just want to like understand like your personal experiences, because for me, like, I mean, I never, um, like going to college. I mean, I saw black women being disrespected just because of racism, but
Mhm.
there wasn't really black males disrespecting. I mean, there's not a lot of black males, to be honest, anyway. So I mean, at Howard, at a such an environment that's really pro-black, I'll say,
Mhm.
um, how is that like? Is that different, or is it shield from the outside world? Is it not? Is it a facade? Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
for
feel like what's interesting is I actually went to a PWI before I went to Howard.
oh right,
So
okay,
like what I noticed at the PWI I went to was that like black women would face just like, regular racism
right,
and regular misogyny. So it's just like kind of the same of what black men would face because we weren't like there wasn't that many black men, so like obviously I couldn't like tell. But then like when I went to Howard, it's like you start seeing the specifics of like different types of racism and misogyny, if that makes sense. So
mm,
like because I feel like those things like colorism and like misogynoir, like they're upheld more like within the black community. I don't know if that's because I'm only surrounded by them now, but like before like okay when I went to my PWI like I wouldn't really see colorism, not that it wasn't there, but I mean like maybe because like there wasn't enough black people, so like like you don't really talk about those things, but like when I'm at Howard like you'll see like kind of little things, like it won't be blatant but it'll be like okay like people for example like men are like trying to get at like a light skinned black girl, you know what I mean? And it's
right,
like they're not saying specifically why, but like why, and like or like they're pinpointing stuff out about dark skinned black women that's just like like okay like how come you're saying this about them? Just like how you said earlier with Megan Thee Stallion, like they'll say like oh like why is she doing this? But it's like you're not really saying that about like the light skinned black women. But like obviously like what's weird about like an HBCU is like you have like every type of person. So it's like, obviously you have like a lot of people who are like, no, like colorism is like real and like misogyny is real. But then like you'll also have people that are like, no, like, coons. But who are like, no, misogyny isn't real, colorism is just a lie, like, or like reverse colorism exists. So
right. Yeah, like being light skinned is like I don't feel welcomed in my community.
yeah.
So that's I mean, yeah, yeah, Muhammad, do you want to go ahead from that?
Honestly, if we're speaking like from personal experience, I don't really, but there's not enough African Americans. There's not enough Black people in Boulder for me to like,
Right,
like notice it. But like but that also like I remember my freshman year, I used to have waves, so I had a do-rag. I was just walking to class in my do-rag, bro. Telling you, like, there was not a single person that was not looking at me, bro. Just like
right,
off of a do-rag. I don't know, bro. It was weird. I was like, yeah,
right.
I've never seen a do-rag before. And
And that's
when
just straight, you know,
just like
white people seeing a
uh
black person.
exactly. And it's so obvious. It's like they know you see them staring at you, you know what I mean? And it's like, I don't know, bro. I really felt weird. Like that's when I was like, did I make the right decision to go here? At that point it really
Mm,
is just it is what it is, you know. And I don't know if like I've always noticed it when it's like other people, like when it's like white people or like people that aren't black, like that are racist or colorist or whatever. But when it's kind of like when you see it within your own culture or you just see it within people the same skin as you just it's like is that something that they want us to do? You know what I mean? Like, is that
right.
something that an agenda that's being pushed to dismantle, like, so we don't have any unity, you know? And then I don't know, you know,
Yeah.
I don't, I don't know if you get what I'm saying, but
No, no,
like,
I definitely do. I mean, I think the first time like I noticed like the whole divide was when we are trying to unite. I think at protest last summer, the whole BLM, I would see that there was more black women at the protest than there's black males. And I was very, I was just like, what? Like that doesn't, doesn't make no sense to me. Because like you're out here supposed to protect one another. Um, and I would go up, and most of the time I'm just there with like a couple of my friends that had to like, yo, come on, bro, let's go. Like what else you got in to do. But when I spoke to my like black women friends, they were always there. They were always actually in front. They were leading the protest. And I don't know if that's because like, oh man, maybe just black men were just not in the season for that time, or just didn't want to show up or whatever. I don't want to really say that it's, it was just they weren't trying to be there for one another. But I find that there's like microaggressions that lead up to it. Like we said, jokes. You making fun of like celebrities, you make fun of rappers, and I mean, colorism is a huge thing. Colorism has always divided the black community. It's divided any community. I mean, it's straight, racism within ourselves. But um, to be honest, like, it's when you try to speak on these things, a lot of people, I mean, you could just Google YouTube, like, do black men hate black women? It's just like these black, guys at a barbershop just speaking like, no, man, that's not true. We're there for our women. How can we hate them if we're one of them? Like all that. Or they'll be like, now I understand because I have a daughter, and that's something I never want to be put in place. Like, I don't want to be, oh, because I have a sister, I understand. Because I have a daughter, I understand. I that's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to understand because that individual exists, and now you can see, should see it without. And that's what we're trying to talk about. So like, if you guys think, obviously, okay, we've addressed it exists, we've addressed on the spectrum. It's not on the point where it's hate, but it's definitely um, degrading. It's definitely aggressive. Um, and you like you said, Amulu, we didn't even speak on trans. We didn't even like, that's a whole nother like, thing for black individuals, African American. That's a whole nother thing. And I mean, that I would say hate. If we were to speak on something like that, like black trans, I would say that's hate.
Oh
That's
yeah.
100%. Um, but for the point of this podcast episode, we'll stick to just sticking to the black women, um, and not going that side. But if so, how do we address this? In a way that we can have like an educated conversation. Like, how do you? Is there conversations in Howard that are like progressive enough to people can listen and sit down with each other, without having to like,
You
go.
said, are there?
Are there like those things happen?
Yeah. I feel like because of our generation now, there definitely is, which is nice, but like obviously you kind of have conflict with like teachers that are like like a little bit older, so they're kind of like trying to teach in a different way. Like I remember this past semester I was in a Black Women in America class, And like my professor, like we're trying to get into like the specifics of like misogyny, and we're like, okay, but like what about like this and that? And she's just like, oh, like it's white supremacy, it's white supremacy, like not really trying to get into it. So I
Right.
feel like that kind of prevents the students, like you don't really notice, I feel like in the classrooms, because like the professors aren't really trying to like get into that, or like maybe they're not trying to like offend someone. But within the students, yeah, there definitely are like a lot of conversations about like misogyny, and like how you mentioned before, like during protests, how like not only just like black men not showing up, but like obviously you're always gonna see black women at the forefront, because like it was always placed upon us, like even since the Black Power movement, to like, you know, be like the care of the house and like be an activist and go out and actually do something, you know. So
Right.
like but how like during those protests, like you had mostly them like fighting for like, you know, black men who were murdered, but like the black women were like left out of it. Or like just like the whole conversation with police violence, like how it's always centered around like men, like, oh, like well, we see how police are towards black men, but it's like kind of leaving black women out of the conversation of like how systemic racism like affects us as well, like.
Right.
and like and like when you look at it, we go through the same things. That's what's crazy, but like for some reason, like it's never like it's never seen, and I feel like that's something that like could help with finally like unifying us, if that makes sense. So like you know, like if we were taught the rates of like, oh, like black women also go through this with police violence, because black women are killed at the same rate as black men, you know. Like if we change the conversation from like just being around black men to like, okay, like this is a struggle we're facing towards black people in general, you know what I mean. I
Mm.
feel like it's very like gendered, and that's the problem, that like that's why like black men and women are always like clashing, because like we're always trying to make it about gender, like, oh,
Yeah.
like black women face this and black women face this. But like even with sexual assault, black men are sexually assaulted just as much as black women, you know. But it's just like we're not allowed to have those conversations, because like it's like black men shouldn't talk about this. And then like when it comes to police violence, like, oh, like black women, they just need to support black men, like, you know, like we shouldn't really bring up how like, no, black women face this too, like black trans women face this too.
Right. Right.
Or else it seem like we're not like trying to help the conversation, we're trying to like divide it, when it's actually like the opposite.
Yeah. I mean, there's something you really brought up that I want to speak about is like, we know black men go through, you know, police brutality. I mean, we've seen videos, we've done that. And the way it's framed is, you know, it's like the spotlight's only on black men. And when it comes to show up, you know, white people will show up, you know, black women will show up, everyone will show up, you know. In fact, you know, white people will try to lead, you know, like be there, you know, especially more than ever, you know. Um, as we see the conversation has changed. And you see when it's different, when black women are the ones being killed, it's or being assaulted, and you know, for whatever reason, you know, the conversation or the people start to change. It's okay, black women will show up, white people will come through maybe, you know, and you know, but it's not on the same support level. And it's not just because you're a woman, but because you're, like you said, you're a black woman. um and so like addressing that, it's it's not straightforward, right? You got to have, you know, like you said, there's people, older generations that are in front of us that are saying, oh, you know, it's we're all the same guys, we're all going through it, man, you know. um and I think like especially younger generations, you know, you have this opportunity to really see things and speak about things at a really young age. Like, I mean, I'm having this conversation at 22 years old. I didn't have this conversation when I was 15. Like my brothers are, you know, like these guys are having these conversations at 15, you know, 16 years old, even younger. So like, the change is coming, but slowly. Because when you go on Twitter, you go on Instagram, you know, social media is obviously a facade, but there's a part of it that speaks, you know, for like a majority that's in power. and that majority continues to say, no, that doesn't exist. There's no, how do black men hate, black women? How does that, how's that even what are you guys even saying right now? Is this part of the feminist movement? Is part of like the white man's, um, uh, way to divide us with one another? This is all BS. And you have not just black men saying that or white people saying that, you have black women that say that too. So it's on both parts. So the education, the conversation is needed. Mohammed, do you want to add something?
I feel like everything that piggybacking off what you said on social media and how everything is just kind of like pushed to the side. Like that doesn't exist. I honestly feel like most people that, get on, I don't really take social media seriously to that point because I feel like
Okay.
a lot of people just get on social media and just say whatever they want, and then it'll trigger somebody to respond to that. Like if someone tweeted like black men hate black women, and then a whole bunch of black men saw that tweet, like someone felt some type of way, it's gonna they just react to it, you know what I mean? And like just start, you see like the threads on Twitter, like people just going off about certain things, and it's always like it shows more about themselves than it does about the actual thing being discussed,
Right.
I don't feel, but it also takes me back to the very first point though, because it's like hate, is it hate or is it something else? Like I feel like with anything, when anyone brings up hate with anything, someone's gonna take it the wrong way, like Mulu said. So honestly, like I feel like it's something it shouldn't be so sensitive. I feel like we should be able to talk about this, but I feel like so many people take things the wrong way that it's hard to have a dialogue, and it's hard to be able to talk about this by setting the ego aside, because everyone thinks about their ego before they even think about anything else.
Right. Yeah. And then, and the last thing I wanted to say on that point is just like when people want to speak on this, they're like, guys, think about the ultimate goal here. It's about the black community. We start, hating on one another. We start even just, entertaining these conversations. We're gonna bring ourselves down before we can even unite. Um, so I just want to ask you, Mulu, like one thing, because I know you were like knees deep in those protests last year and everything. I mean, we're here in July. Um, do you think like that's the tone has changed for Black women? As you've seen like Breonna Taylor, things like that. Do you think there's been some light since last year? Especially since you're, at Howard, and then when you're outside of Howard, like, has that have you felt that change? And as yourself as a Black woman, have you felt like more valued, or is it, you know?
Yeah. I really don't think it's changed because even at the protests last year, that's why, me and the other girl Dom like really wanted to hold one, because like we just kept noticing that like Black women kept being left out, and like even like on social media and in other protests, like although like there were some chants like for Breonna Taylor or like Black trans women, it was just like nothing was really being done. It was more like people were getting really riled up about George Floyd, and like now we see where that's gone, and like luckily the family has gotten justice, but like Breonna Taylor, like nothing happened. So it's like yeah, I don't really think it's changed, but I think it's interesting that you guys had the perspective about social media where like it was not really, useful, because there is that side of it where like you'll go on and then like you'll see just like pointless conversations of like, Black men or even Black women being like, like this isn't real, like misogyny or whatever isn't real. But like, I don't know if it's because my timeline is amazing, but I don't really see that. Like social media actually was like a big part of my education on these things. Like before, I didn't really like have the words for like what I was experiencing. I didn't know like what misogynoir was. I couldn't really like pinpoint like, when colorism showed up, and like like you just feel like you're like crazy, like is this really happening and stuff. So like,
Right.
but I feel like when I went on social media, like that's when I really started like seeing things, like getting an education on it. So I feel like even though it can be harmful, I think social media is like a really big, like playing a huge part in like Black people's unification and like education, because like you see people like, no name using social media as a tool to like connect people and like get an education, share books and stuff. So I feel like it can be used in a good way. Even like on social media, I see like people always bring up how police violence affects like Black women just as much. So I think like which is really important, because like without it, like you don't see that in real life. Obviously, like I
Right.
said, in last year's protests, we didn't see it. But like when I went on social media, I'm like, okay, so like this is possible. Like other Black women like do want to have this conversation, like, and feel the way I feel, and like even like Black men too. I'm like, okay, like I see like some, not a lot, but some want to like talk about this and like how it's unfair. So yeah, I think it can be used as like a really great tool to like help Black people stop this division and like have these conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. I
I
mean,
answered the question. I don't know if I like veered off, but I wanted to talk about the social media. So I don't know if I answered the first question.
no,
Well,
you did. You did. You did.
okay.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think you're right to that. Yeah, social media has value for sure. It can educate and it can inform people. I mean, that's what it did last year. If it wasn't for Twitter, if it wasn't for Instagram, nobody would show up, you know. But at the same time, like you said, no name was even disrespected herself, right?
Yeah.
Like people came at her, like Black men came at her, when they said J. Cole, like they completely went to J. Cole. I mean, I don't even want to speak on that, but like you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So even like you have prominent figures, those prominent figures, a lot of the, they get attacked. And social media is good. But the thing is, it could be really deceiving because like it feeds off what you want to see. So yeah, you're viewing things the content that you like.
Yeah.
So your timeline might be a bit,
Gotta utilize that block button.
but I mean, you're right to say that definitely social media has like a huge influence. I mean, it really does, but there's a lot of idiots too. And from you guys, just YouTube is like, I was just before we got on, I was just looking up like videos on this whole topic, and it's tough. It's tough to watch, tough listens.
Yeah, no, even on TikTok too.
There's
It's
TikTok.
horrible.
Yeah,
Huh?
there's videos on TikTok, like
Oh
speaking on.
yeah, there's like always these videos of like it'll be like, I don't know if it's teenagers, but like Black teenagers, and they're like this side is like Black women and this side is like white women,
Oh
and they'll like
yeah,
go to that side. You know what I mean? So
But that
like
happens like on a major
it was
scale.
like a
I thought that
trend, bro.
you said on a major scale. Yeah, it's a trend. Like
That's wild. I had no
you've
idea.
never seen one of those videos?
I've seen one, but I thought it was like I was like, okay, it's just one head doing that. Not like I didn't think there was like a trend. I didn't
Yeah.
think people would actually do a trend about. Wow, that's sick, bro.
On TikTok is like, I
That's
hate.
yeah, okay. That's really sick. Well, this unfortunately we gotta as much as I want to continue the conversation has to come to an end at some point. So Mulu, I really want to thank you for first of all being the representative. No, I'm joking. Yeah, but really speaking on it, and really informing us and informing the audience that will watch this about these issues. And if you guys have more topics you want to listen to, if Mulu wants, if it's cool with you, people want to talk to you. Sometimes people want to talk, and then you can definitely reach out to her. We'll have that put in. But really appreciate you for being here. Thanks for everyone tuning in, and hope to have really another conversation that can be uncomfortable. So
Thank you for choosing me to be the representative. I feel like I didn't pop off enough. Like Usually,
Nah,
No, you
if you
did
guys see my
great.
Twitter, check out my Twitter. I
yeah,
really pop
we'll
off on
put her
there.
Twitter. We'll put her Twitter. We'll definitely put her Twitter. And I mean, you want to say anything like anything or
Else,
yeah, anything else? It's your
read a
time.
book,
Read a
people.
book.
Okay.
You got book recommendations?
Oh my God. On the spot.
Yeah, on the spot right
Hmm.
now. You got seconds.
The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. That's
Okay.
a really good book.
Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. Okay.
Yeah.
We're not sponsored or anything.
Or
So
they can check out the thing that we made on Google
oh, the
Docs.
black
It has a
yeah,
list of
we'll put that. We'll put
or
that.
Google.
Or
Google
Google.
is free.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay nothing. You just look that shit up.
Yeah. You go to the library if you don't got Wi-Fi. So yeah, we have a black toolkit that Mulu and her friends created, and it's on our 2020 page. We'll have the link down below. So thanks again. Mohammed, you want to put in your, you know what to do. Subscribe, everything.
Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, drop a comment down below, share this with your friends, share this with your mom, your dad, everybody, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, to your racist neighbors, you
Yeah,
know.
let them watch this. Just blast it on the speakers and open your window. Let them hear this
Exactly.
conversation. Yeah.
Exactly. And more and the last thing, if you guys really want to hear more topics, you got a topic in mind, let us know. We hear from you. We learn from you. We learn from one another. So we'll speak on anything. And if you want Mulu back on the show, you know, she could replace me. So let us know. And we look forward to our next episode. Thanks again. And peace out.